Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jeff Craig, Director of Education and Workforce Development for the City of Aurora, and welcome to the Aurora Education Commission podcast number 4. Today's guest, we're really excited to be able to have Dr. Brian Canetto, President of Waubonsee Community College. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
This is an outstanding opportunity to be able to hear some of your thoughts. We'll get to hear some of Dr. Canetto's initiatives, some of the challenges and successes that the college is facing, and then what the future looks like for Waubonsee Community College. Dr. Canetto is current Aurora Education Commission member, in addition to being the president of the college and an absolute true leader in our community. If I could ask you to share with our listeners some of your previous roles that, everybody goes, well, how do you get to be president or CEO? So if you could talk about some of your path to get to your president of Waubonsee Community College.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. And again, thanks for inviting me here today. I have a pretty traditional journey in some ways in education to the presidency. I started out as a faculty member, so I was a full-time faculty member for about 7 years. And the last 2 years of that role, I became a department chair. So I got a little taste of departmental leadership. And I really enjoyed having that bigger impact, being able to focus on something broader than my classroom,
Sure.
Doing some departmental work, starting to get into looking at budgets, and really liked, having that broader influence on what was happening with our department. And so after a couple of years of doing that, I thought, well, maybe this is something I'd really like to do full time. It was kind of contagious, that impact. So I went and took a first administrative role in Illinois community colleges, and kind of moved into progressively more responsible roles, from an assistant dean to a dean to an associate provost, and then took a break and went to Michigan for a couple of years, left Illinois, and was a vice president and provost at Grand Rapids Community College in Michigan. And each one of the roles gave me different skills and experiences that really prepared me for that presidential role.
Absolutely.
From budgets and personnel to strategic thinking and strategic planning. And after a few years in Grand Rapids as a vice president and provost, I knew at some point I wanted to be a president, and was really looking for the right opportunity and the right fit for me. And when the opening at Waubonsee was there, and I read the job description, and having been from Illinois and had the pleasure to work most of my career in Illinois, I knew it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. And so, I applied, and it worked out well for me so far. And it's been great ever since. I've been in the role since January of 2023.
Wow.
So yeah, just over 2 years now. And just a really exciting opportunity for me, a really great community, great people at the college. And so, if you'd asked me, almost 25 years ago when I started out as a full-time faculty member, are you going to be president of an Illinois community college someday? I don't know that it was on my radar at that point. But working in education, working in community colleges, I knew I had a lot to give, and felt that I had a vision to lead and to really have an impact on our community. And it's been a wonderful ride.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, from my lens, in my previous role as school superintendent, community member, and now my current role, we're glad you chose to come back to Illinois and serve in our area. So thank you for all that you bring to the table.
Well, thank you.
I want to probe back to you talked about when you said I wanted to try something that was bigger than my classroom, something larger than my four walls. And I'm curious if you remember, what was some of the biggest challenges moving from that role of, hey, I've got my group of kids and here's my role, and now I have a larger responsibility. What was some of those pieces that you had to tackle?
It really is that lens of, having to take in broader input when you're doing something, right? In your classroom, you have, control over the curriculum and your students, and you can make some adjustments here and there, and exactly what you and your students need in that moment. But when I was a department chair and was looking at some facilities requests for our department, and it wasn't about me just saying, oh, this is what we should do. I had to, bring in my colleagues and go through a different type of process. And it takes a little bit more time. It took a little bit of learning, along the way from faculty member to president. You make some mistakes and you learn from those mistakes. But that broader work, that collaboration with my colleagues, to see the impact that it would then have on all of their students, rather than maybe my 100 that I had in that semester. Now that impact is multiplied by 4.
You bet.
And the excitement and energy and what it allowed my colleagues to do with different spaces and different resources was really exciting. And like I said, it was really contagious, so much so that moving into full-time administration was something I had done almost 18, 20 years ago, and haven't turned back since.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I had the great honor, and you were very gracious to allow me to come in and talk with your team a few months ago. And we talked about some of the similar things we're talking about today. But if you could share with the listeners some of the top initiatives that you're taking on right now and looking to.
Yeah, our top initiative right now is we just recently approved a new strategic plan.
Okay.
So RISE 2030 is our new strategic plan, and RISE is an acronym for our four priorities. So the R is for redefine our relationship with the community. The I is for invest in academic innovation. The S is for strengthen the student experience. And the E is for enhance the employee experience. So teaching and learning, the community, our students, our employees, those are our big priorities, and those stand the test of time. So over the next 5 years, it's a 5-year plan. The next 5 years, we're going to be doing some real intentional work to address each of those priorities.
Sure.
And we want to make sure we are serving our community. We want to make sure we're being responsive to what our students need and what our community needs. And so we're going to be, we're in the process right now of implementing the infrastructure for that plan. And we're really excited. We've been doing a lot of work since that plan was approved to make sure that this is a strategic plan that actually gets some momentum, gets some work done. We're going to be setting some metrics and some targets. We want to be very transparent about that. And we really think in 5 years, Waubonsee is going to look very different. The world around us is changing.
Absolutely.
And, Waubonsee's been a great fixture in this community for a long time. And, the whole vision of the strategic plan is to be the community's college. And, there's lots of different facets to what that means. And, that's the work that we're going to be doing over time, that when people think about workforce training, when they think about their education needs, when they think about solving the biggest problems within our community, that Waubonsee is top of mind for helping do that.
Absolutely. And making great inroads doing that. And I was struck when you shared this a while back, that a lot of times strategic plans, and you talked about it, you want it to be an action plan, not just a statement that looks nice in a covered album somewhere. But you talk about the obvious pieces, the students. You talk about the service community, which is a large area that Waubonsee serves. But the piece that probably doesn't always make it to an actionable item is the staff piece. We always talk, we want to have our best educators in front of our kids. And you guys are making an intentional, purposeful effort to make sure that not only are the kids being served, but your employees that are serving and delivering that education are also top of mind. Yeah,
we talk a lot about being a destination employer, right? We want to be a destination employer, and Waubonsee has been. That's why I was drawn to Waubonsee, and we want to continue to be a destination employer. And I think that means a lot of things. We know that salary and benefits are really important, but are we also going to be a place that invests in you professionally.
You bet.
And looks at what a professional development framework looks like, so that when you start at Waubonsie, you may have a long career advancing at Waubonsie. Or maybe at some point we invest in you and your next best move is to go to an elevated position at a different institution. But we'll be lucky for as long as we have you. And if we become known as a place that supports our employees, then we will continue to draw the best talent that we have. And, we want to do really hard work at the college. We really want to make an impact for our students and for our community. But it's important to take care of ourselves. We can't do that work if we're not in our own feeling fulfilled, feeling that we are contributing to the overall mission. So a big part of that in enhancing the employee experience in RISE is connecting everybody to the mission and the purpose of going back to that. Why are we here? Why are we doing that? And that is everybody from, a part-time behind the scenes person to a full-time faculty member in the classroom. How is it that we connect to our mission, vision, and the strategic plan?
Literally keeping the person in personnel.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you talked about making that impact. How do you hope that this strategic plan will impact the greater community?
Yeah. As a community college, we see ourselves as a driver of economic and social mobility, and we want to reach more people. We want to educate more people, and we want to put more individuals within our community in high demand, high wage jobs. We want to put more of our students that come to us with the intent of transferring, we want to put more of them on a successful transfer pathway. So, we see that full breadth of, drawing them into the college, letting them know we're here, letting them know everything we do, from transfer to workforce, from auto to nursing. Let them know the full breadth of what we do. Make sure they understand all of the different options. Bring them into Waubonsie, and then once they leave us, making sure they're successful in whatever it is that they do next. And we talk a lot about getting the enrollment and making sure they're successful while they're there with us at Waubonsie. But I think the real measure of our success is going to be how successful are they when they leave us and go into that job, go to that transfer institution, trying to keep that talent as local as we can, but we'll wish them well wherever life may take them. But, we really have to start telling the story even more and more, and amplifying the story of the difference that some form of post-secondary training can make. Some credential, some degree, some certificate, whatever it might be. It's going to look different for everybody. But when you have that training, when you have that education, when you have that credential behind you, your quality of life improves. Your opportunities throughout your life can improve, and that makes the individual better, and it makes the communities that they live in better. And
certainly gives folks more doors to open.
Absolutely, and that is the that kind of credentials, that kind of training is the key to economic and social mobility for so many people.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Since this is an education commission podcast, I do want to touch base on that a little bit. You've been a member since you arrived in town back in 23. And so from your lens, community college, president, leader of that organization, what is your thoughts on how the commission can play a more effective role in our educational community, and then in the work that not only that group is doing, but also your team at Waubonsie?
Yeah, what's great about the commission is it brings together all of the educational leaders within the area.
You bet.
And they're together to not just inform each other and engage with each other, but also to advocate for each other. And it's this educational ecosystem, right? That exists there, and we get to work together, network with each other. But the real important work, and what we're doing, and I think could even do more of, is, taking advantage of that time that we are together and having everyone from, concerns of birth to kindergarten, from, K to 12, and then higher ed in the room talking together. And how is it that we can look at that full educational lifespan, right? I talked about, Wabanzi wanting to be that driver of economic and social mobility, and we see ourselves as doing that. But that starts, and you know this from your previous role, that starts in high school. How do we get students in high school thinking about what that career pathway is? How do we create and validate multiple pathways for our students? And then, how do we make sure they even start thinking about some of that maybe in 7th and 8th grade with some fun career exploration and some workplace visits? But more than that, we need to make sure that our students are prepared to enter kindergarten. So it is that birth through career pathway that we really have an opportunity to look at. And how do we, can we as a commission within the partners that are there, how can we look at that pathway at its full breadth and each talk about the role that we have, the role that we can play, but also how we can support each other, whether it's through Aurora University or Wabanzi helping with the birth to kindergarten work in terms of helping parents and training the future educators of those children. Is there an opportunity that we do with dual credit, and build that dual credit pipeline? So, the commission is doing that work. It's a lot of work to do, but it's the advantage, and I think the work that they could really focus on is how do we create that full pipeline, that full educational pipeline within our community.
And I want to make sure that we get a chance to brag on you as well. You talked about getting kids to think about those career and those next step opportunities. Wabanzi Community College will be hosting we call it Illuminate Career Pathways next fall, where roughly 2,700 freshmen will come through with roughly 100 different vendors and business partners throughout the area. And so greatly appreciate your hosting that. But so should be some great exposure for not only the business partners, not only our freshman students coming through, but I think some of the faculty and staff will be able to start making those connections as well.
Yeah, we're so excited to be a part of that event and to host it. I just think it's so important to really just have an early exposure. And again, people are going to change their minds. We all do things differently as we go through life. But having that plan, having that some idea of what you want to do, that's going to really help as students start making those transitions, especially from high school into their college, their university, and into the job force. If they have some idea of exploring that early on, I think that's just great.
Awesome. You had talked about your strategic plan, and you talked a little bit about that all these different inputs and even some of the challenges that you face coming out of the classroom and then taking on larger leadership roles. Can you talk about what you perceive as some of the biggest challenges you're facing in your efforts as Wabanzi Community College?
Yeah, the good thing is there's no shortage of enthusiasm for wanting to help the students and really wanting to contribute to the community. It's a great place and everybody's really excited. I think there's two kind of challenges that we're facing, and we know these are challenges, and so we're actually really trying to address them. One of the things that we're looking at is this strategic plan is really blurring the lines of the very different areas that we have as a college. So we really are talking about this as a college plan. And so we're creating teams, cross-college teams, to work on all of these different initiatives. And so we're asking people to really break out of their department, out of the work that they do on a day-to-day basis, and help each other think through some of these big college-wide priorities. And so, we have, the employee engagement team, the employee priority that we're focusing on, we have people from all over the college working to talk about that professional development framework, to talk about how we connect more people to the mission-driven work of the college, because it's everybody there is an employee, and it's it's not only, though they'll have a big role in it, but it's not only the purview of human resources to figure out how we engage all the employees of the college. And when we talk about investing in academic innovation, that is going to primarily be driven by the faculty on our campus, but we have other people at the college who have interest and expertise in different forms of educational technology and different forms of educational practices. And so, a lot of that work will also be driven by cross-college teams. So getting everybody comfortable with that, is a little tricky, because we might say, well, I'm not a human resources person, or I'm not a faculty member. Do I really have a place to contribute? And our response, and where we want to go with the culture of the college, is yes, you do have something to contribute to that. But that also leads to, a challenge of capacity. There's, in education, there's always so much going on. There's things that go on that come up day to day that are unexpected. And so, when we roll out this strategic plan, there's a sense of, well, how are we going to do all of this work that we want to do together? And we're doing some capacity building exercises. We had a big one this week where we brought people together and said, let's look at what we're doing. Let's look at what we want to do. Where do we have overlap? Where can we take some of the work that we're doing and connect it to the plan? And how do we do good work? How do we stay active and dynamic and busy as a college without overwhelming ourselves with work? Because that's one of the risks that you run, is that people just get so busy that with all the enthusiasm, all the best intentions, sometimes it's hard to get to the work because there's so many other things going on. So we're having some real purposeful and intentional conversations about what can we stop doing, what can we do a little bit better, how can we be more efficient, to really focus on the most important work, which is that strategic planning work.
Because you're right. I mean, people do have a capacity for change and for engagement, and it's you need to be able to take that temperature as a leader and go, okay, I think we're probably there right now. Let's focus. Let's stay the course. And then when we work through some of these tasks, then maybe we take on some new ones.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me when I first met you, and strikes me still today, you talk about the culture, but you also bring a level of enthusiasm, of engagement, of excitement about what you do, what you're talking about, what you're immersed in, and it's palpable. And it's something that I think a lot of people pick up on, but certainly want to make sure that I take the opportunity to point that out, because it energizes people when you engage with them and have that discussion.
I thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And I feel it's mutual. I get energized from the people that I work with.
Sure.
And, the more people from the college that we engage in meetings and work, and when I see them getting excited about some of the things that we're talking about, I feed off of that. And, and if they're feeding off of that, then, that's the energy, very often that we have at the college. And it's just really exciting. It's just a mutually beneficial give and take of energy, which is very exciting.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. I'm going to shift our similar question about challenges, but a little more global in perspective. If you could talk about what you see in terms of education today, the biggest challenges we're facing, and I would probe you a little bit, maybe you have some solutions or thoughts about it, but if you could talk about what your perspective is on it.
Yeah, and it's been going on for a little while, especially globally, education, but maybe a little bit more specifically in higher education. There has been kind of a skepticism about the value of higher education.
Yes.
We're asking people to invest time, money in education, whether that's, one of our short-term credentials, a 2-year associates. Many of our students are part-time, so sometimes that's 4 or 5 years. Or you're going off to a 4-year university where you might spend 4 or more years. It is an investment. It's an investment in time. It's an investment in money. And I think people are wondering if that time and money is always worth it. And my reaction to it is part of a solution, and some of what we've been talking about today is how do we better tell the story of what it means to have a credential, some form of training after you get that credential, after you get that degree. And I think that's why we are really starting to focus on the value of our degree being partly determined by how successful you are when you leave Waubonsie or any other place you might be attending. And I think we have to tell our story. What is the better quality of life that you have? What are the other opportunities that you have? What are your increased earnings over time? And how do we tell those stories? And how do we tell those stories as the students are there? How do we use it as a motivating factor to say, you are in our auto tech program, and maybe it's hard, and maybe it's part-time, and maybe it doesn't seem worth it here, but do you know when you finish that these are the types of jobs that are waiting for you, that this is the kind of salary that you can make, and therefore the kind of lifestyle that you can make. And by the way, Waubonsie's still going to be here when you're doing that. So maybe you come back and take a couple entrepreneurial classes. You can open your own garage in a few years. So how do we tell that story to both, attract the students, help them stay with us so that they can see that end as part of their journey? And then how do we, tell them what the potential successes and benefits are at the end, and what that looks like for all of our students is going to look a little different. But we really need to, drive home that story. But I'll also say some of that burden is on us to make sure that the programs that we offer are relevant, do have jobs at the end of it, that we are doing everything we can to keep our costs low and to use creative solutions to reduce the cost of course materials and to leverage our community for grants and scholarships. So it's heartbreaking to hear about that skepticism, and should I spend the time, should I spend the money, and we just have to do a really good job of explaining early on what this can do for you in your job, in your life, and what the lasting benefits of that.
I think you're not wrong at all. I think there are lots of should I or shouldn't I questions. But I think you talked about you're asking the why, and then you're answering the why. And then if that's something that's important to you, then Waubonsie Community College is one of your top of mind opportunities to do that. I also, you've mentioned a few times, and I didn't want to make this a career in tech show, but certainly you have demonstrated an investment that's about to open up in the next 9-10 weeks.
Yeah, August. We're ready for fall. We are our board and our college is investing in a 100,000 square foot technical education center that is going to be on the south entrance of our Sugar Grove campus. It's going to allow us to expand our offerings in some of our biggest programs, our most popular programs, and our most in-demand programs in auto body, auto tech, and welding. So it's going to be an amazing building. We're really excited about it. We'll be able to meet the growing workforce demand in our community. And another exciting piece of that is some of those programs that are in that building are being relocated from other buildings. So it gives us opportunities in those other spaces to think about what are other needs that our community might have, and other programs that we can either expand or start as a result of that.
Which is really, all those changes are really student driven, students are raising their hands and signing up
Mm-hmm.
for these classes,
Mm-hmm.
which is really forcing you to expand those
Right.
facilities
Right.
because of the demand.
And fortunately there's jobs out there too for
Absolutely.
them, so, and good jobs, and that's what we're looking for. Where is the demand? What do the students want to go into? What that our workforce needs, and that workforce is providing those students with really good jobs and at the end of it, and that's really exciting for
It
us.
really is.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Kudos to the board of trustees, to yourself and leadership team, and the college in general that landed on. That was just awesome. I'm going to give you a chance to talk a little bit about puff your chest up a little bit. What are some things that you're most proud of in your current role?
Yeah, I'll talk about just a couple of things. We've talked about the Technical Education Center, but I've talked a couple of times about creating and validating multiple pathways for our students. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is, Wabanzi's position within the community. And, it's been that way for a long time. I have the honor of being the 5th president, but there were 4 other presidents before me that really built a strong foundation. And, whether a student wants to come to us and transfer, whether a student wants to come to us and again go into auto tech or nursing or business, whatever it might be, we have got the committed faculty, the dedicated staff, the amazing resources at 4 different campuses, great facilities to provide students with that experience. And it's really exciting that our community sees us that way, continues to come to us. We're seeing over the last several semesters increased enrollment, which is
Huge.
they always say people vote with their feet. So people are coming, and that's great. We want to see that continue to increase. And I'm really proud of being a part of that Wabanzi legacy and being able to continue that excellence and that position that Wabanzi has within our larger district. It's really an honor to serve.
That's awesome. People can feel that pride. That's for sure.
Oh, good.
I'm going to ask you to put your mentoring hat on, and you had talked about your path to the presidential role.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you share with those that are aspiring to be educational leaders?
I'll offer 2 things.
True.
First, if and this is where going from a faculty member to a chair, that first step into administrative work is sometimes you're reluctant to do it because you don't know what it is. It turned out really positive for me, but there were other times when I agreed to be department chair. That was the first time that started a trend of saying yes, of taking advantage of opportunities that are put in front of you. I am fairly certain I was underprepared for almost every position I went into. I
think we all were.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like I had a good background. Solid. I was convinced I would learn and could grow into it. But if you've got to be willing, especially as you're aspiring as a leader, to say yes, and to take a chance and take that role. And if you say, well, I'm not ready for it yet, I'm going to wait. Well, at some point the opportunities might stop coming.
Yes.
And have some faith in yourself and those who surrounded you and those who are putting you in that position that you can do it. And then the last piece I would offer is, those of us in education talk most and primarily about students. We've also talked a little bit about the importance of our employees. And as a community college, striving to be the community's college, we talk a lot about the community and partnerships in our community. One thing people sometimes maybe forget when we talk about education, we talk about curriculum, we talk about facilities and opportunities, but it's really about people. And, I would say, don't ever forget that this is really a business about people. and we're transforming lives, we're building partnerships, we're communicating with each other. And that when you think about it as something that is focused on people, I think that should shape your approach to how you do the work. And the big thing about that approach is making sure that you listen. I mean, you just really have to listen to what people are sharing with you, the good, the bad, the things you might not want to hear. Those are the types of things that are going to make you as a leader, but also make the organizations that you're leading a much stronger place.
Awesome. Great advice. And I hope people that are listening are taking some notes on that, because well said, well stated, and right straight from the heart. Well, Dr. Canetto, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's been my pleasure, truly.
Great to have you share your wisdom, your thoughts, your perspective. Dr. Brian Canetto, president of Waubonsie Community College, and we'll hope to see you next time. Signing off.